And a lot of times I personally am waiting for everyone else to change so that I can really start to enjoy what's going on. Like once we get out of the baby phase or the toddler phase, or once my kid just learns to do XYZ, like I'm really going to start to enjoy this. And my priority and my goal now is to take my never ending thirst for fulfillment and channel it into really finding fulfillment every single day in my relationships and just being happy with who I am like today, regardless of what's going on around me. It is easier said than done, but we're doing it, kind of.
Andrea Faulkner Williams, thank you for joining us on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
We are so excited. For all those who don't know, Andrea is the co-founder of Tubby Todd Bath Company, which usually I do a little explanation. I don't know why I do, because clearly no one knows your company better than you. So Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Yeah, so my husband and I started Tubby Todd. We make sensitive skincare essentials for little ones and mamas too. So anywhere from wash, lotion, sunscreen. Our best-selling product is a cream called the All Over Ointment. And it essentially creates a barrier on the skin to lock in moisture and keep irritants out. Think like a clean version of Vaseline or Aquaphor, that can be used for all types of skin sensitivities.
Your products have like taken over the internet. Like especially, I am a new mom soon, due with my first in a couple weeks. And
You are? I can't even see your belly.
Yeah. Well, it's there. It's hidden beneath the camera.
When I'm pregnant, it starts like mid-chin down to like mid-thigh. It's more like a troll situation. There's like spare hairs growing other places. I'm not joking. So you're doing a great job.
I feel like my height kind of helps. It helps with like having more of an equal distribution, I feel like.
Yeah, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
Yeah, unfair advantage at life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you would know. So on top of it all, you're a mother of 4 children.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 4 kids. My husband, Brian, and I, who started Tubby Todd together, we have a 13-year-old girl and then 3 boys ages 10, 8, and 5.
Oh my gosh. So where did the kids fall in between you starting this company?
So we had the little girl and we had a marketing company that we did together. And our goal was always to work together. Like on our first date, my husband was like, I really want to work with my wife. I'm like, that sounds so fun. Like my parents always worked together. I thought it was so cool. He's like, we should get married. And then, so then we were marketing other people's products and we were like, my husband was working in manufacturing and he called me on the way home from work one day and he was like, hey, we should make a bath soap, the best natural bath soap for our baby. And we should call it Tubby Todd. And the story behind the name is he was the biggest baby ever born in the San Jose hospital. He was 11 pounds. Gross. Your baby will not be that big. Do not worry. And cross your legs. And the nurses called him the Moose. And so we have the moose as our mascot. You'll see on like the Tubby Todd products. Oh, and when he said that, I was like, hell yeah. Yeah, we're going to do that. Like it just made sense. Like I'm looking back, I'm like, that was a really weird thing to agree to with 0 questions asked. But that's apparently how I feel about him. And so then, or I'm such a team player. I'm not sure. One of the two. Or I'm just so naive. Probably the latter. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then as we were developing the formula, our second child was born, Walker Todd, and he had really sensitive skin. So we actually had a formula that pivoted and started to make stuff geared towards babies prone to eczema, rashes, which is most babies at some point have some sort of cradle cap, diaper rash, baby acne. And so that is where our actual formula we landed on came when the second one was about 7 or 8 months old. And that's when we launched it. And then we've had 2 more kids.
What was the point where you were like, oh my gosh, this is really catching on? Because I mean, now you see your products everywhere. What I was going to say is every like new mom registry and recommendation include like the Tubby Todd, either your all over ointment or the hair and bath solutions. Like it's just kind of a staple now. When did that happen? Or when did you kind of see like, oh, this is really taking off?
So I think expectations are like the best and the worst thing for all of us, right? And so when we first started and if anyone talked about us, I'd be like, oh my gosh. And now if I see anything having to do with babies that were not mentioned in, I'm like, oh my gosh, like in the other way, right? So I don't even know. I'm not necessarily the type of person who really ever feels 100% satisfied with anything, for better or for worse. So I don't know that I ever am like, oh my gosh, that took off. Because whenever I see people talking about us or whenever I see us in a roundup or an article, I'm like, there's always a side of me that's like, hey, we really need to make sure that we, are communicating more clearly to our mamas how to use the product once they get it in a follow-up chain. So instead of like just soaking that moment in, I'm usually writing an email like, hey, here's an idea for an email flow. Can you guys make this happen? So I don't know. I'm sorry to my team and everyone who knows me. Thank you for still working here.
Yeah. I feel though like that there's like two kinds of people, and I feel like there are people who are great at celebrating like small wins. And then there are people, I'm like a little bit more like you. Like when my account started growing on Instagram, everyone was like, oh my gosh, isn't this amazing? Aren't you so proud? I'm like, no, now I'm just wondering why I'm not bigger, why I'm not doing more, why,
exactly.
And I do think a lot of people with maybe more of an entrepreneurial spirit veer towards that, like, it's never good enough.
Yes.
It's not a great way to live. I mean, it doesn't contribute to a lot of fulfillment. Do you ever find yourself being like, I should kind of pause and like relish in like what I've accomplished?
Totally.
Or no?
Yeah. So a year and a half ago, my husband and I, so about 6 or 7 years ago, my dad came on our board, and he himself had built a few businesses when I was growing up. And he had sold 2 of them to different private equity groups in financial services marketing. So very different industries, but he had seen what it looked like to build a business and to eventually sell it. So he had come on our board to help keep us focused and kind of help push things along, and helped really a lot with the operations and the financial structure of, how we set up our operations. And he was incredibly helpful. So it was July of 2022, we sold a majority stake of Tubby Todd to a private equity group. So although we still own a large percentage of it and we work here, we have co-owners that we manage with and sit on the board with now. And my dad, when that happened, he was no longer involved in the business. But that was a huge life-changing experience for my husband and I. And if you had told us when we started Tubby Todd, okay, you will get to the point when you will be able to sell this, and financially, you won't have to worry about, your family's liability. Because that was a huge reason why we built the brand and then sold it, was because as the brand builds, you become more and more liable personally, whatever might happen on social media, or just, like it's a product, somebody's harmed for it. And there's a lot of ambulance chasing lawyers who are going to come after small businesses specifically. So it was really nice to offer that protection to our individual family. It was really nice that we were able to have that opportunity working together for that number of years with my father. It was really nice that we were able to offer these growth opportunities to all of these people in our brand, right? And these amazing women primarily that we worked with that have helped us build Tubby Todd. So if you had told us that, 10 years ago, before Tubby Todd was built, you would have stopped and be like, oh my gosh, this will make me so happy. We will feel fulfilled. My husband will be fulfilled. I will be fulfilled professionally, spiritually, emotionally. As a couple, we'll understand that we are so strong. There's nothing that can stop us. But the fulfillment has been less since selling the business than any time and any point before selling the business. Sorry, let me say that again. So the fulfillment has been lower at Tubby Todd since selling the business than it has been prior to selling it. And it is not because my work hasn't changed. I do exactly the same thing. And I love my team, and it's even grown. We are actually doing better than we ever have. It was just this expectation that I had in my mind that when we reach a certain point, I'll finally be happy, or I'll finally feel fulfilled, or my husband will finally feel some sort of way. And it was the best experience I've ever had, not because of anything that happened to us financially or from something to put on our resume or LinkedIn, but something that we can walk away with it. The only way we will ever be fulfilled is if we can feel that fulfillment personally from our relationship with each other, with God, with ourselves, right? That is human relationships, and your relationship with the divine is the only thing that is fulfilling. It has nothing to do with your experience professionally or physically or, financially, which I think we all think we believe, but this experience has taught me that it is actually true. And it has been extremely humbling. I will be honest. It's been really humbling.
That's so beautiful. I feel like that experience, most people probably won't have. Maybe you will. Most people probably won't have the experience of selling a company, or maybe it won't be on that level. But we all have these little markers throughout our lives that we think as long as we get there, then everything will be fine. I think for women, a lot of times it's like, if I just lose 10 pounds, I'll be thrilled.
Yes.
Or if I get married, or if I like certain little milestones. And I just think it's a wonderful reminder every time you hear someone meet those huge milestones and they're like, it had nothing to do with the milestone. It has everything to do with your attitude, with your relationships, with all the things that can happen with or without that milestone.
Yeah.
And we forget that so often.
Yeah. And I think especially in my relationships now, with my children, with my spouse, with my extended family, you're often waiting for a situation to change. And a lot of times I personally am waiting for everyone else to change so that I can really start to enjoy what's going on. Like once we get out of the baby phase or the toddler phase, or once my kid just learns to do XYZ, like I'm really going to start to enjoy this. And my priority and my goal now is to take my never ending thirst for fulfillment and channel it into take that I have a lot of energy, I have a lot of drive, for better or for worse, and take that into really finding fulfillment every single day in my relationships and just being happy with who I am like today, regardless of what's going on around me. Right. And it is easier said than done, but we're doing it kind of.
Oh, I think that is like truly one of the most beautiful goals you could have in life, because the alternative, which I think is what happens to a lot of people, is that you just spend your whole life waiting for everything and not actually enjoying where you're at. And what a sad thing to look back on and realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes.
I can already tell that you are full of like wise life lessons. So I'm excited to hear your answer to the question of the show, which we ask everyone, which is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice that I've ever gotten came while we were building Tubby Todd, but I think it is 100% applicable to any situation that you might have. And I will relate it back to my goal right now, which is to enjoy the things that I've worked really hard to bring into my life. My 4 babies, my husband, and this business, and then the beautiful friendships that I have. So while we were building Tubby Todd, I was pregnant with our second child, and my husband was working full-time at a manufacturer. I had written a book, and I was also working from home, and then I had a toddler. So I was doing like 4 or 5 things, which I was actually really happy doing, but I didn't feel like I was making a lot of traction in any one thing. So I called my dad, who I mentioned at the time was not working with us at Tubby Todd, but he was in the process of building his own brand at the time. And I was like, I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Like I'm not getting anywhere in, fixing up our home or with my relationship with my daughter, or specifically in Tubby Todd. I want this product to come together, and I can't figure out how to make any traction. And he was like, think of one thing every single day that you're going to do and do that one thing. And it sounds so simple, but it was as simple as thinking, I'm going to call 5 manufacturers right now. So a big part of figuring out the formula was connecting with the right formulators and manufacturers to create the product that we were looking for. Because we bootstrapped the entire experience, people were super excited to take our calls. It's not like I called from, a well-known company and said, hey, I have this much money to invest. I was basically asking them to sacrifice their formulator and their chemist's time to create a sample product for us with the faith that I would be able to eventually sell it and place a reorder. And so that's kind of how manufacturing works there. I started to make these really small, obtainable goals every single day. Something as simple as today, I'm going to find 10 different cap options, and I'm going to make a spreadsheet and put them all in a Google sheet. And the next day, I'm going to review them with my husband and select what our cap option is going to be. So even backing out of like, I'm going to figure out what the cap is today, but figuring out, oh no, I'm just going to build this sheet today, right? Was the best thing for me to take this ginormous project and wrap my head around it, right? So when we talk about finding fulfillment in life, right? So what is that one thing I'm going to do every single day that I'm so excited about? And it could be going to get your favorite coffee or your favorite soda, like your favorite indulgence that you don't need to defend to anyone, but you're going to go grab it by yourself while listening to your favorite song or watching your favorite show in the parking lot while you drink it, right? And it's a 15, 20-minute experience. What is the one thing that you're going to do to work towards that whatever that big goal is you're working in your life right now? And I'm not perfect at this, but I try really hard to do it with my kids as well. So I'm trying to think like, here's the overall experience I want to have with them, the type of people I want them to turn out like. And so every single day, there's 4 of them. I realistically don't know if I can, commit to a certain amount of time or a certain amount of things with every single one of them every single day, but one of them every single day, having this touch point where we either read together for 30 minutes or, my daughter and I, we made up a meditation. She was struggling with, specific type of anxiety. And we did that meditation every single day together for a few weeks. So for that portion of time, that was working towards the ultimate goal of what the vision I look like for my family. Right. So that's my one piece of advice. The one thing every day, sis.
I think that is so good. I mean, I love that you also touched on the fact that like that can apply to work. It can apply to doing one productive thing. And it can also apply to doing one maybe not productive thing that just fills your soul and not necessarily an ROI or a future metric. Like, I feel like we also think like if we're in a bad spot, like, well, all of our anxiety needs to go away today. Like, let's bombard our system with things to calm us down. And really life is made up of just doing those little things every day that help us feel better or that get us to that future goal. I think that's such a beautiful concept.
Yeah. And no one day is good or bad. It's a combination of so many things, right? So it's all about like the direction that you're moving in. But specifically for large, overwhelming projects, I would say raising a child is one of those. I would also say building a home, maybe fighting an illness, right? All of those are broken into day by day decisions that you make to move in to the ultimate goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have felt like that getting ready to have a kid.
What kind of baby are you going to have?
What kind of baby?
Yeah.
You mean like boy or girl?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's a girl. It's a little girl.
It's a girl. Those are the best kind. Yes.
It's a little
I like
girl.
the boy. I like the boy ones too. Whatever kind it was, I was going to say it was the best kind. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're both wonderful. The good news is I won't know the difference because this is my first. So she'll be whatever she is. But I definitely have felt like my mantra has just had to be, especially because as you get closer and you're like, what is going on? My whole life is about to change. I literally am just like one day at a time, just get through one day. You just can't think too far ahead because you will spiral.
Yeah. Well, and babies are, in my experience, far better out than in the stomach. So there's that too.
I'm beginning to feel like that could be the case as well. The more uncomfortable I get, I'm like, I'm sure it's more enjoyable.
Yeah, pregnancy is a very dark place for me, but not everyone's the same. So,
Well, kudos to you for doing it 4 times if it's that dark.
yeah, no, I make poor decisions in that I'm like, again, super naive, and I begged for a 5th child. I begged and cried. I tried like every type of manipulation. I was like, God told me we should have a 5th child. And my husband was like, no, he didn't. I was like, you're right, but I really want one, so he recommended we take care of the children we have, whatever. So that's what we're doing.
I'm shocked though. Do you not feel overwhelmed? Like I feel like doing one of your jobs would be overwhelming, much less having the 4 kids and the full career.
Yeah, no, I'm very overwhelmed. I make very confusing decisions.
How do you balance it?
I was raised in a state of chaos in like the best way, and I only know chaos, and so I don't know. I'm not advocating for it. How do I balance it? I sleep a lot. Like I sleep is number one priority to me through all things. Like I get 8 hours of sleep every single night. And
That's great.
It is really, really important to me. So I would say that's my number one tip for balancing it. And then the other thing is I don't balance it, like I have a nanny who helps, and I order my groceries, and my husband does a lot of things that, my mom did when she stayed home growing up. Even though he works full time, there's a lot of cleaning and helping and things that he does. So, yeah.
I think the transparency is nice for moms who are out there who maybe like don't have the means to have a nanny or get their groceries delivered. And I think it's hard because a lot of women who do are like, oh, like it's not that bad. It's like,
no,
well, we just have to acknowledge that there are things that make it easier for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I definitely think like in any family, there's like a bandwidth, right? And whatever it's, let's say the number 100. And sometimes like my husband has taken up, more than 50% of the bandwidth with his professional life. And so that means that I only have, a smaller amount to give to my professional life. Or one of the children is taking up 70% of the bandwidth of the 100% of the family. And so that means both of our professional lives are going to fall back, right? And I think that's like one of the best things about being part of a family is being able to adjust your bandwidth for other people's needs, depending on like what they need for that time in their life, right? Or it just teaches you to sacrifice for other people that you love. And so, in all things though, I do feel like audiobooks and TV shows have helped me get through them. I would also say that. So I do a lot of audiobooks and I watch a lot of TV too. So
I would 1000% agree with that. Sometimes people say they're not TV people, and I'm like, then where do you get joy from your life? Like where do you unwind?
Like you want to be alone with your thoughts. These are things I don't want to be alone with. Like
no
I meditate,
interest. None.
I read my scriptures, I write in a journal occasionally, and I do life coaching therapy, all the things. But other than that, do I need to be alone with my thoughts much more than an hour a day? I don't think I do. But you guys can argue with that if you want. That's fine.
No.
Yeah.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's a little bit more of a deep question, and maybe you've touched on this, some of the hard moments that you've had throughout your business. It might, though, be a hard moment that you've had personally. What is the biggest life lesson that you've learned from one of the most difficult times of your life so far?
This goes back to the experience I shared about selling Tubby Todd. And I shared that I got pretty low after we sold the business. And I don't know why it's making me emotional, but the answer that I thought of when you asked the question was that I am whole regardless of having four children, regardless of being married, regardless of being a businesswoman. Like Andrea is whole just because she is Andrea. And again, that is easy to say and a lot harder to believe. I think a lot of us go back to, and I've had a few experiences in coaching and therapy where they say, well, go back to when you were a child and how did you feel in your family, right? And I had a lovely childhood and so much validation. Some would say too much validation. But I think all of us have the little girl that lived inside of me that believes I have to do something or be something to be loved. And I felt very strongly after we sold the business, the sense of like, I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough to lead this company. Had I neglected my children too much to build the company? Had I not neglected them enough and not built the company enough? What would it look like moving forward? It was, it was a new balancing act in our marriage to figure out, now that we've sold the brand, but are still working here, what will our roles look like moving forward? And at the end of the day, I just have to believe and understand that regardless of what I do or don't do, I'm enough just because I'm me. And people are going to accept that. But I have to accept it first, as cliche as that sounds. And my answer of how I found that really goes back to undoing the negative thought patterns that I have in my head that come from just me tearing myself down. It's not anyone else who's put those negative thoughts. It's just beliefs that I've chose to allow to kind of stream and play. And, they start for all of us when we're kids, and you allow yourself to kind of feed into them that people love me because I'm this, or I need to show up this way, or people aren't going to love me if I don't do this. And it's been a lot of work to like reverse that. And it's been a really, really beautiful process that I'm really proud of, because I'm now teaching and seeing these patterns come in these little kids who will come home from school and be like, oh, they didn't want to play with me because this, and this. So how do we help them? It's okay to have a negative thought about ourselves, right? But how do we help feed the better thoughts and not those negative ones? If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I could not relate more to what you said. And I think it's just interesting. Anyone who has built anything or done anything small or large on their own begins to kind of place their identity upon that thing.
Yeah.
And I think no one talks about how difficult and dangerous it is when you achieve this level that everyone thinks is awesome. It's like you built a business. For me, it's like, oh my gosh, you have over 1 million followers on Instagram. And then yet every single time someone says that, you think to yourself more and more like, oh, like, well, then I have to maintain that in order to be valuable and in order to be worth something.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to separate yourself from that pattern.
So I'm religious, and I believe very strongly in not just like a heavenly father, but also a heavenly mother. Everyone believes differently in, higher powers. And I had this experience on my birthday. We were at the beach. We live in San Diego, and I told my kids, I want to go to the beach and I don't want anyone to complain about it, because we go to the beach and my kids always complain about it until we get there and then we have fun. But I was like, you have to not complain going to the beach. And they're like, okay. They were like all laughing. They're like, we do complain every time and then we have fun. I was like, this is hilarious. You guys are the worst. So we got there and it was just the best. They were all playing, and like, I looked in the clouds and I felt it was like really cloudy, and it was kind of started to rain, which doesn't happen a ton. So it was just like the best day. It was just this like sprinkle, and I was looking out at the clouds at sunset, and the sun was barely peeking through like these little rays. And I just felt the most overwhelming feeling that was such a metaphor for me and who I am. Like, I'm a whole sun, but like a lot of days, there's all these clouds and things that are making it so I can't shine fully as who I am. And that's okay. Like, that's part of being on the earth and in this world. You're not going to be perfect every single day. There's going to be your period and your fights with your family members, and you're not going to make your bed, because I don't make my bed. That's another thing I don't do. I sleep a lot and I don't make my bed. It's just a decision I've made as a human being, adult. I make my kids make their bed though. It's weird. And I was like, I'm shining. It sounds so silly, but it was one of the strongest, most beautiful spiritual moments I've ever had. And I've had a lot. And I could just feel this love from a higher power, specifically a female love, like the way my mom makes me feel, which is she's the best. And I just knew that I was shining, right? And I think we got to lean into those things that make us feel like we're shining. I love watching TV, like I said, but it doesn't make me feel like I'm shining, right? Like it's a good way to just kind of numb everything. But when I work out and I feel like those endorphins, I feel like I'm shining. When I do something kind for someone else, I feel like I'm shining. When I put together a creative flow at work, I feel light. I feel that energy, right? So I think we got to continue to lean into those things, right? Because those will help fight the negative narratives that all of us have, and that all of the books and research are telling us that our generation is going to be more prone to than anyone. This anxious generation, everyone's talking about it, right? That it's hard to have that dopamine firing. And so we got to lean into everything that is allowing the light to come through, right?
Absolutely. I think that's such beautiful advice to anyone who's feeling a little stuck or wondering where they can go to find that innate worth that has nothing to do with their profession or their family.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting because you could ask like, okay, well, like what are specific ways that people can go and realize like what helps them shine? And honestly, I feel like there's no really concrete answer because you kind of just know as a human being, like, and what might make you feel good is something different than what might make me feel good. But like your soul, like knows, like your spirit, whatever you believe is inside of you can feel when something feels so authentic. I feel like that applies so much to relationships too. Yeah. Like when you met your husband, I'm sure I felt the same way when I met mine. And when I'm around friends who I really love, who make me feel like my best self, I'm like, oh, everything about my energy just feels like calm and good. And like, when you're around someone who doesn't make you feel that way.
Right. And we get in patterns in our relationships. I mean, I never do this, but other people might. I do this a lot where we feed, like with my kids, like I just start to like nag the crap out of them. And do that, make your bed, practice your piano. And it's like that is not shining light, right? That is not, that doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't feel right. There's a better way for me to do that. Making them a list. They check it off. They feel awesome. It's sitting down with them and doing it with them. And again, I'm not going to be perfect at it every single day. So it's like one thing a day with them to build that and move in the right direction. But when we are feeling low, really tap into like, where are the sources of light you felt before and go back to them and just search for them to fill you up. Cause you're not supposed to feel sad. You're supposed to feel happy, cause you're just a beautiful son. You are.
I love that.
You're going to be such a good mommy. I'm so excited about your baby. Everyone at Tubby Todd gets pregnant. Everyone at Tubby Todd gets pregnant. It's like the most insane business model. How we're still in business with all of our employees on maternity leave. I don't know, but I love it. It's the best.
I mean, it's probably like a subconscious thing. Like they're just working around baby things all day and they're like, now seems like a good time.
Like legitimately at our first at the dinner where we met our private equity team, the partners of female. And I was like, are you going to have a baby with your boyfriend? She's like, no one has ever asked me that before in 20 years of my career. I was like, welcome to Tubby Todd. And she did. She got pregnant that year and she has a baby. And he's in our picture.
See? She was being classically conditioned. She just didn't know it.
I know. She has no idea of my power. She does now.
Okay. To end us off, I would love to know if you have a favorite quote or mantra, maybe as you've had this enlightening experiences recently that you've had like words that have come to mind. But do you have any quotes, mantras, affirmations that like really have stuck with you that help you frequently?
Well, so one of the number one things I say at Tubby Todd applies to everything in my life, and that is treat every customer like a friend. And so I think it's so interesting when you go into a store and someone is like so rude to you and you're like, you would never treat a friend like that. And I'm trying to give you my money. And so we made it almost impossible for people to buy soap. We're like, we didn't sell on Amazon for almost 10 years. We didn't sell at Target. We're only on a direct to consumer site. So we were more expensive than other soap brands. Anyone could go to Target and buy soap. We have like 2 products for so many years and people were still coming to Tubby Todd to pay for the soap. And then we would ship in like 5 days to them. So I'm like, okay, if we're going to do that, we better be really good friends. So we like refund if they don't like it. So I think in all experiences, you just need to treat people like friends. Like, how would I treat my friend? And how does she think of me? Right. So that applies to yourself. Like, treat every customer, including yourself, as a friend. Like, the crap that you're telling yourself, is that how you would treat yourself? Right. I don't think so. Like, we could just all be friends. And, friends are a lot of different things. Like, friends, sometimes we just take a break. Like, oh, I don't need to call you every single day, or I don't need to hang out with you all the time, right? Because a true friend understands there's breaks. Like, you offer a lot of like grace to friends. My husband, again, I think I get so comfortable. I could be more of a friend. My kids, the people, my sister, sometimes I'm not as great to them as I am to my friend. So, treating people like friends. That's what I would say, girl. Including yourself.
I love that. And I honestly think it's especially true with people like yourself or your husband or your family members, because you would think that those are the people that you treat the best.
No.
And I think subconsciously in our brains, we're like, well, those people we know are always going to be there for us. So sometimes we treat them the worst.
Yeah.
And you really should always treat them like you would, honestly, like someone that you're trying to be friends with even. Like, put on your best face for the people you love. Because so often we just get lazy and we're like, well, I can kind of treat you however I want and you'll still be there. And that's not being a good friend.
It's not being a good friend. And it doesn't, over time, they won't still be there. Right. It really does start to affect your relationship. So you have to be careful with that. So I'm learning.
We love a good growth journey. Love a growth journey here at Quotes by Christy.
Journey.
So this was such a beautiful, just fun conversation. And what you said is going to help so many people. Please let us know where we can go to follow along with you, with Tubby Todd, and how we can support.
So Tubby Todd on Instagram, on TikTok. We have the cutest, best team of 24-year-olds that I'm just always like, you guys are cool. You want to hang out after work this journey? I don't say that. But then I'm like, oh, wait, you were born in the year 2000? Anyways, we have the best social media. They're amazing. So Tubby Todd on Instagram and TikTok. And then our emails are also really fun. But me personally on Instagram is Andrea Faulkner Williams, my full name. And message me if you ever need anything.
I love it. Okay. And is there any special promotion that listeners can expect?
Chrissy, I want the Shift podcast listeners to get some Tubby Todd. So you can use the code The Shift at checkout starting June 1st through November 1st of 2024 for 15% off. So that'll be good for one purchase. Put your email in. Make sure you sign up for our rewards program. We call it Club Tub. You get bubbles instead of dollars. Get it. And it's actually really, really good. And you get lots of free goodies.
I love it. Okay. Anyone looking for some kid, baby skincare, it's the best of the best. I'm sure I will attest to that even more once my child comes, but I know it now because literally every single person I know swears by these products. So Andrea, thank you so much again for joining us. This was such a fun conversation.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Chrissy. I really, really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
It was so fun. Thank you. And to everyone listening and watching, thanks for joining The Shift. We will see you next time.